Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mapleton Township Council meeting of April the 9th, 2024. I hope everyone had a good Easter weekend. You're ready to back to work. I know I had a good Easter weekend and week, so and I'm ready to get back to work. If you're able, please rise for O Canada. Everyone, welcome to the Mapleton Township Council meeting of April 9th. Good Easter If you're able, please rise for the candle. All right, we're going to play it all over again. I didn't mean to talk through it the whole time, but apparently I left my mic on and I mumble when I'm standing there. But it's okay. We love the music in the background. Okay. We do confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councilor Rotten, second by Councilor Tamlin, that the minutes of the Township Mapleton Council meeting held on March 19, 2024 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. We're going to play it all over again. And we're going to play it all over again. I didn't mean to talk through it the whole time. Oh, there we go. There we go. I mumble when I'm standing there. You see how my mouth's moving? And it's okay. We love the music in the background. Okay, we do confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councilor Rotten, second by Councilor Tamlin, that the minutes of the Township Mapleton Council meeting held on March 19, 2024 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. You've now heard that read a couple times, so there you go. You know what we're going to talk about here. Oh, there we go. There we go. Honestly, we've never had this happen before. This is the first time. All right. Now, if you really do hear anything else, it is me talking more than I need to. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to item number 6 under the Planning Act. So we're going into a planning meeting. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act to hear comments from the public and agencies and to give consideration to application ZBA 2024-07 for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Subject lands are located at 41 Adam Brown Street in Moorfield, and the purpose, in effect, is to permit the construction of a semi-detached dwelling. We'll now receive information from the clerk on statutory requirements. That's carried.
Thank you, sir. Property owners and agencies were provided with the required notice on March 21st. Proper postings were completed March 22nd. And the following organizations expressed no concerns or issues: GRCA, County of Wellington Roads, Source Water Protection, and the County of Wellington Planners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'm now here from Michelle Brown. Hi, Michelle. We'll now receive information from the clerk on statutory requirements.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Pardon? It's not
Property owners and agencies were provided with the required notice on March 21st. Proper postings.
Thank you, Mayor.
March 22nd.
So this is a vacant infill lot, and the applicants have purchased, and they are looking to put a semi-detached home on here, and we feel that this will help deal with the housing crisis, although it's not zoned appropriately for it. The applicants have gone through many versions, and this one seems to work the best with the least amount of disruption to the surrounding neighbors. We are in support.
Thank you for that. I
So
don't
this
see
is
Alan or
a
John here.
Vacant infill lot, and the applicants have
Are there
purchased,
comments from those in
and they are
attendance? Please
looking
indicate
to
so.
put a semi-
First, hear from those in support of the zoning amendment. Anybody here to speak in
This will
support?
help deal with the,
Anybody here
housing
wishing to speak in
crisis,
opposition
although
of this
it's not
zoning
zoned
amendment?
appropriately for it. The,
I just look at you five there, just because it's you there.
versions, and this
Any
was
questions from council
with
then?
the least amount of disruption to the surrounding neighbors.
All right, the public meeting is now concluded. Thank you for attending the public meeting. Resolution 6.1, moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information the planning report regarding ZBA 2024-07, A. Remley and J. Zwart, 41 Adam Brown Street, Moorfield, Part Lot 5 and 6, Moore Survey. All in favor? It's carried. I just look at you five there, just because it's you there. Moving on to delegations. First up, we have the Lake Conestoga Snowmobile Club. Peter, I guess you're speaking. Is now concluded. Thank you for attending the public meeting. Resolution 6.1, moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens. All right, just pull the mic up and hit the button to turn yourself on there. 2024-07, A. Remley and J. Zwart, 41 Adam Brown Street, Moorfield.
Let me just get this
Part Lot
situated
5
here.
and 6.
Lake Conestoga Snowmobilers Incorporated respectfully requests that we're included in the Township of Mapleton's list of service clubs contributing to the local community.
First up, we have
We're
Lake
making this
Conestoga
request on the
Snowmobile
basis that
Club.
we're a volunteer-based
Peter, I
club,
guess you're speaking.
funded in part by the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs, the OFSC. Our membership is 100% volunteer, consisting of executive, including president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. We have a 98% of our executive and volunteers that either reside full-time in Mapleton or spend as much time in Mapleton utilizing our non-primary residences at Conestoga Lake. Throughout our 50 years in operation, we have contributed to the community in many ways, the most notable being the creation, maintenance, and administration of our trails, which are available during the winter months to all residents of Mapleton Township, as well as all other snowmobilers. We're also responsible for the maintenance and administration of the Lake Conestoga Snowmobile Club clubhouse, located on our very well-known trail network. Through the oversight of the OFSC, our trails utilize private and public lands. Through this process, the LCSC has, as well as the OFSC, have developed land use agreements with our generous landowners who allow us to access their lands for the purpose of trail setup, takedown, trail maintenance, as well as riding, of course. LCSC members have grown to know and become very familiar with our landowners, and we have a very solid, long-standing relationship. The LCSC also consists of members of Mapleton community. They're also members of our Moorfield Optimist Club. Our trail signs consist of trail-sponsored logos and from local businesses that direct snowmobilers to utilize local businesses, including restaurants, gas stations, grocery, and other small businesses. Snowmobilers are a pretty loyal group, I will say that, and our signs channel their economic activity to our local sponsors. Provincially, overall, snowmobiling is directly responsible for $6 billion in economic impacts on local businesses. So as part of our this is our 50th year in operation, we plan on hosting a celebration that would be a great chance for the Mapleton community, as well as volunteers past and present, and our landowners to get together to celebrate our relationships, as well as the club's milestone. The celebration is not planned as a fundraiser. It's planned as a celebration, free to the entire community, with a 50-50 draw that we intend to donate back to the community. Your time and consideration is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. So what you're asking for is to have what? What do you want specifically?
So we're looking to be part of the service club on the list so that we can utilize some of your facilities possibility for rent, or not rent. So that's kind of what we're thinking.
Moorfield Community Center is where we wanted to hold the 50th anniversary.
So you're looking for just a one-time event?
Either or.
Okay.
It's up for your consideration.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah.
we look
So what
on
you're
it
asking for
permanently
is
or just for
to
that one.
have what? And when do you plan on holding this event?
In the fall. We haven't quite nailed down the date yet. We do have a committee, a subcommittee that's sort of planning this all out. In our eyes, some of the funds just for renting that, the space could be reallocated to the event. And that's kind of our thought. So if it was for just the one time, that would be fine as well. So we're looking probably into September, I think. We
Depending
get,
on availability as well.
yeah, we get busy. If we want to have our landowners out, they're busy on their fields a lot of times too, so we have to be aware of that. So September, late September would probably be the target date, or early October.
And you're thinking the PMD hall, is that what you're thinking?
In our eyes,
Yeah.
the funds just for renting that, the space.
Oh, sorry, no.
Or the Moorfield?
The
Moorfield Hall, okay.
Yeah, for just the one time, that would be fine.
Questions from council,
So
other than my
we're
own?
looking probably into September,
Go ahead.
I think. We get.
I know we've been talking about reviewing this whole list and the parameters within it. Is there a timeline for that we could have that decision made for their event so that we could make a decision for that?
Mr. Barron?
Through your worship, yeah, the timeline is to hopefully gather as council and go through the entire policy manual in May. And then hopefully with all the changes, if they're accepted, kind of work through that so we could easily get that approved in June.
Okay.
The new policy manual.
New policy manual. Okay.
I know we've
Further
been
question,
talking
follow-up?
about
That's
reviewing
good.
this whole list and the
Council Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a timeline for that?
As you guys may or may not know, we've had a bunch of delegations out in the last number of months, hence the kind of review coming up. For myself, I'd be supportive of kind of a one-time hall rental. 50 years is a big deal. It's obviously a complete volunteer organization like these guys have mentioned. I do think the intent of kind of going on the service club list is kind of, we'll discuss it, I guess, in May, but the intent is more like clubs that give back kind of as a whole to the community, but I would suggest 50 years is only going to come around once in our lifetime for this celebration, so if we could help out with the rental of the hall, it'd be a nice touch. That'd just be my proposal.
Thank you, Council Martin.
Hall rental, 50 years is a big deal.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, I tend to agree with Councillor Martin. Hosting a 50th anniversary in many communities doesn't happen too often, so it's a great thing to see happening. I also appreciate the OFSC trails myself, and seeing a club that's been around that long, I would also like to recommend that we do the one-time use for this event.
Come around once in our lifetime for this celebration, so if we could
So
help,
any question to the delegation
it'd be
at this point?
that'd just be my proposal.
Thank you, Council Martin. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out and giving us the information, and so congratulations on 50 years. It's fantastic,
Through you,
and
Mayor,
congratulations on your organization.
with Councillor Martin.
Just to make sure we know when the date is, so we can show up with,
So it's a great thing to see
our
happening.
banners.
I also appreciate
All right, thank you.
myself, and seeing a club that's been around that long.
Council, I do have a recommendation here, moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information the delegation of Lake Conestoga Snowmobiles Club, including Peter Butler, Darren Gowing, Jake Wilson, regarding a request to be included in the Township Mapleton's list of service clubs contributing to the community, specifically for a celebration of the club's milestone of 50 years in operation at an event to be held, it says here at the PMD Arena, but we're going to change that to the Moorfield Hall. I do have a recommendation here, moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin. That is what we have as a resolution. Do we have a motion to amend? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would propose a motion to amend that the club be offered a one-time use of the Moorfield Community Center
For the 50th anniversary celebration.
for this event, yes.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Reed. PMD Arena, but we're going to change that to the Moorfield Hall. You have a recommendation here, moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin. That is what we have as a resolution. The council will vote on the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the entire resolution. So Moved by Councillor
Mr. Mayor, I would propose. a
Martin, second by
motion to
Councillor
amend
Reed, that the
The club be.
Lake Conestoga Snowmobile Club be offered a one-time use of the Weirfield Hall for their 50th anniversary celebration. Councillor Reed? That's what we're voting on, the amendment. All in favor? It's carried. Now we'll vote down the entire thing. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Vote on the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the entire resolution. Next up on the delegation, we have Wellington Federation of Agriculture. I believe, Janet, you're speaking? And you have a video? Offered a one-time use of the Weirfield Hall for the 50th anniversary celebration. That's what we're voting on, the amendment. Thank you. All in favor? It's carried. Now I'll vote down the entire thing. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. On the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the entire. Next up on the delegation, we have Wellington Federation of Agriculture. I believe, Janet, you're speaking?
Oh,
And you have a video?
you're echoing today. Wow.
Or are you speaking through the?
Yeah, can we just wait a second to start the video? Yeah, I just thank you, council and staff, for allowing WFA to come forward as a delegation. I'm, as you know, Janet Harrop. I'm now past president, and Barclay Knapp is now the current president. We're working in tandem, finishing off some projects, and this is one of them. You'll have had the electronic version of the study in your package and the hard copy just now. We're trying something new. We've created a video. It is a free video AI service that, so there is a bit of a watermark in the video, so we're trying this, and then just a few words at the end. Thank you, council and staff, for allowing WFA to come forward as a delegation. I'm as you know, Janet Harrop. I'm now past president, and Barclay Knapp is now the current president. We're working in tandem, finishing off some projects, and this is one of them. You'll have had the electronic version of the study in your package and the hard copy just now. We're trying something new. We've created a video. It is a free video AI service that
Making
so there
decisions
is
that
a bit of
affect
a
Wellington
watermark
County's
in the
lands and
video, so we're
citizens for
trying this,
generations to
and then
come
just a
can
few
be
Thank you for that. There was also an additional infographic that was also sent, if we can bring that up. Do you know what I'm referencing? Yeah? Okay. Okay, she's getting that. So we've come to you before and sent a copy of this agri-food study. We were finalizing some components of it. So we really wanted to take some time and come to each of the local tier municipalities to speak about agriculture. And Mapleton's very aware of agriculture in this municipality and the importance of it. And anecdotally, we knew that agriculture was a powerhouse in Wellington County, but once we put it all on paper and had some research done by the Wilton Group, which is a Wellington County company as well that does a lot of agricultural work, it really gives a lot of tools for us as a municipality, as a county, to kind of when we go to organizations and when you go to the province for different events, to be able to speak to agriculture and the importance of it, and why it's important to keep those roads and bridges open, and why the rural infrastructure is so important. If you do have a hard copy, the document I was referencing is just inside. It's this infographic that kind of speaks. It's a summary. Catherine did send it, so I don't know if you have it to put up. But anyways, it's a really good, concise summary. And I think the point that Wellington County geographically covers 0.2% of the province is important, and what comes out of this county is phenomenal on that amount of space. And some have said, well, we have a lot of large cities and we have areas of the province that you can't grow a lot of food, and so you really shouldn't account for that. But that actually really is the point. The point is that the province is already, some of the most fertile land in the province is already covered in pavement and buildings. So looking at what's happening in Wellington County with it only covering 0.2% of the province, and having 5.8% of Ontario's agri-food value chain output is a very powerful statement. Looking at some of the some of the commodities that we have, we look at 10% of Ontario's corn, 5% of oats, winter wheat 7%, 8% of barley comes from Wellington County, 12% of dairy production, which is close to my heart because we have a dairy farm, 10% of Ontario's poultry and egg production, 8% of hog and pigs, 7% sheep and goats, and also the recognition of the importance of the equine industry that we have in Wellington County, more to the southern part of the county, but it is a powerhouse within the province. So we put this together. We put this study together to be able to provide a resource for municipal and county government to show the value of agriculture in our county. So just wanted an opportunity to present this, give you a hard copy, and see if you had any comments or questions around the study.
Thank you very much, Janet. Questions from council members to the delegation? Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
I got a couple. So this is, this is a fantastic study. My question is kind of sort of related to the material that you've been presenting. So obviously, there's some big numbers that the ag community is responsible for as far as economic productivity and such. I was curious, as part of your advocacy work that you do, which is a lot, where do you think we're at as far as having natural gas connections for a lot of our big operations? We got guys that are farming hundreds and thousands of acres and still rolling with propane. I know the one guy that reached out just 2 weeks ago was like, it was 150,000 pre-COVID. I'd hate to know what that number is at right now. Has your association, been having are you doing any work around advocacy for that? Or are you getting sort of a vibe provincially, like we're 45 minutes off the 401 and, guys are doing big tanker trucks of propane daily when these dryers are going, right? So I was just wondering what your thoughts would be on that.
Okay, through you, absolutely. The OFA has been doing a lot of work around natural gas and the carbon tax for farmers, and the bill that went and then didn't go through the Senate. It's kind of stalled in the Senate. It was amended around farm heating. So absolutely. OFA is doing a lot of work around trying to bring natural gas into the rural communities. The stumbling block that they always have is it has to be a partnership with a lot of with the companies that are providing the natural gas. They don't see an economic business plan to bring natural gas out to the rural area, which is so frustrating for everybody because the volume that goes through the dryers we hear often, well, they bring their crops off and then they dry their crop and then that's it. So they're not using the volume throughout the year. Well, we all know that the dryers run for months and they just don't dry for a couple days, and barn heating runs a good part of the year as well, depending on the commodity. So it is definitely on the radar for OFA, and they are continuing to pursue that with partners in the natural gas industry to try to bring it into the rural community.
So just to follow up on that, so this is a great question, by the way. So the natural gas, are they not looking at the volume of the propane you're using to show what volume they would be using as natural gas? Do they not look at those numbers?
Yeah, through you again, my understanding is that, yes, they do look at the volumes, but when you have a subdivision that heats and different things with natural gas, the volume is that much higher than it is in the rural area, even though some farms use large volumes, but other farms use no natural gas. So it's, again, to make that business case around the use of natural gas. And interestingly, we have a very green federal government that's trying to discourage the use of natural gas, but we don't have an option in the rural community. So trying to have those discussions are also a bit of a barrier in trying to get more natural gas.
Thank you. Councilor Martin, you had a follow-up question? Another question?
Thank you. I was excited to see you on the docket today because we don't get FaceTime with you all that often. So I'll tie it into, it's kind of related to your presentation, kind of not, but you talk about protections for the ag sector, and obviously here in Mapleton we're, 90%. So around protection of the, we've seen very public display happening down in Wilmot right now around farmlands. One of the other ways of protecting the farms themselves are around the MDS, which I believe we have a letter later in the on the agenda that talks about MDS protection. As an association, how do you balance the MDS, like trying to protect the actual farms themselves, with the almost monthly surplus farm dwelling applications that we see coming through here like all the time? How do you, we've had one of the local farmers in here advocating against surplus farm dwellings, but what's the association's stance on surplus farm dwellings when it comes to, protecting the actual ag sector?
Yeah, the surplus farm dwelling discussion, it was a very divided discussion at our board table as well. Understanding that the need to not have these homes knocked down because farm owners don't want to be have renters in their homes, and housing and access to housing is even more important now than it was then. So from an OFA perspective, they look to each county to make that decision. Through the planning work done at the county or regional level, they leave that, and then if we need any support or resources around around the interpretation of the provincial policy statement, they'll support us with that. The surplus farm dwellings, it just shows the economics of agriculture is why we're seeing more surplus farm dwellings, whether it's the ability to then sell the land or sell the home or to be able to incorporate land into an adjacent farm. It's just, and the unavailability of land. It's a whole picture of that. The work that we're doing is really, because the surplus farm dwellings, obviously, the home already exists, so it's not a new building. That MDS is as much of an issue. But some of the lots, you live out in the green space, and they may have a wooded area, and they want to include that in the lot, and the lot becomes 4, 5, 6, 10 acres. So the work that we've been doing in the county is when we see a surplus farm dwelling that is larger than the recommended minimum for septic and a well, which we kind of look at 2.5, 3 acres is kind of pushing it. But if we see properties that are larger than that, we push back because we've had planning staff at the county level have said, well, it's all wooded, it's not farmland. Well, woodland is farmland. And especially growing carbon and sequestering carbon, I should say, and growing living plants is becoming more and more relevant for consumers. So that's the work that we're doing. The discussion of going away from surplus farm dwellings and suggesting that at the county is not something we've done. We actually have, not in Mapleton, but more in the southern part of the county, we have a secondary ag designation that is causing havoc with agricultural land more in the southern part of the county, because you can then do an additional lot, and most of the people that are on the secondary ag land, it is zoned ag land, but they're not farming it for a living, and it's creating a lot of conflict. So we try to keep apprised of all the work that's going on. I hope that answered the question.
Other questions? Okay, I have a couple. I was looking here at the total number of farmland that's being lost in Ontario, 319 acres per day across Ontario. But in Wellington County, it's showing that our numbers are going up. How do we attribute that?
Yeah, when we first saw that, when the census came out, we were all scratching our heads and talking to the county staff and talking to the planner that's at OFA. And what came when they kind of drilled down on the numbers and looked at the reason, there is some woodlots that are being cleared or pushed back. There is some marginal land that's now being farmed. There is land that previously wasn't being included as a farm that is now being included as a farm, and that may be some properties that were in the process of getting their farm business registration. Some that move out to a rural area don't understand the farm business registration, and when they register the new property, it's often in those small parcels. It's initially all residential, so there's a process to recognize that. But the big piece was the land that was marginal, that was previously being pastured. A lot of it now is being farmed because of the economics of the value of the land and the productivity of the land in our county.
Thank you. Great answer. It's great news that we're having more farmland, and let's hope that the rest of Ontario can pick up their socks a little bit on that. My second question is in the farm demographics area. When you look at 55% of farmers in Wellington County are 55 and older, and the average age of 53, and of course in Ontario it's 57. I'm like, what's going to happen? This has got to be a real concern for the farming community.
Yeah, again, you have people on either side of the fence when you're talking about this discussion, because the numbers, they look at the farm business owners, right? And that may not be the person that's doing the day-to-day work, right? And I know in the case of our farm, our son has 20% ownership, but when they ask for who owns the farm, it's the main deed, which is not in his name, so he's not captured in that data, right? So I do think that there are some farms, some terminal farms that don't have a succession plan or somebody, the next generation that's interested in farming. Farming, people talk about a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle in the sense that you work a lot of hours and long hours, and you have to be, during certain times of the year, you have to be ready to do that. And a lot of people now, younger people now, they want their weekends and they want their vacation time. And so we have a whole cluster of people coming out of agricultural universities that are really wanting to farm. And then we have a whole other group of kids of farmers that don't want to farm. So the ideal would be to kind of partner some of the farms that are terminal with somebody who's interested in farming and do a lease or a partnership or something like that. The economics is very, very difficult when you can, if you, I know in our case, if we have another generation that's in the business, so because of that, there's significant financial issues for my husband and myself being able to put our farm in a position that the next generation could farm, because he could never pay us what it's actually worth. So that's part of the issue with agriculture now from that succession planning, is just the debt load, interest rates, cost of capital equipment has gone through the roof. So trying to establish those relationships, do more co-ops of kids in universities to be able to work with producers so that there may be those relationships. People are hiring more and more workers because families are smaller, and whether those relationships then foster into some type of a succession plan. It is a problem on paper. In some farms, it's definitely a problem, but we are seeing multiple generations that are working on farms.
Thank you, Janet. It's troublesome, as you brought out, that, the two sides of this, there are those that are not on the full deed, so that brings the age up, but then there's others who don't have that succession plan ready. So, yeah, it's certainly something that we have to keep our eye on. Federation of Agriculture right across Ontario, probably right across Canada for the same problem. Any other questions? Councillor Ottens?
Thank you. Yeah, how does the WFA balance the need to protect the farmland with the need to provide housing? Like, obviously, it's difficult for any of our towns, whether it's Drayton, Fergus, whatever, to build more houses without spreading out onto nearby farms. But if you don't do that, people don't have a place to live. So how do you balance that? And based on this presentation, what do you want or expect from each municipality as you make this presentation?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because the timing of that's very relevant at the moment. I live in Centre Wellington, and the growth in Centre Wellington and Fergus and Elora is massive. So as a federation, we've done a lot of work in the last several years of building relationships with county staff, with local press, with some of the local radio stations to kind of bring awareness of what our agricultural land, the value of it, because a lot didn't understand the value, which is where this study came from. So we often are going to different councils when there are discussions around urban boundary expansions, and we're part of those discussions at the county as well. And the big piece of recognizing is that intensification is really the solution for saving farmland. And so we keep talking about that, recognizing there is going to be some farmland lost in the expansion. There will have to be in order to have enough space. But doing it smart in planning, which could be like a buffer area around your urban boundaries that is either like a green space or some type of space that reduces conflict with some of between the urban and the rural neighbors, and doing that planning in such a way that people can get through the community, people can live in the community, have green spaces in the community, and farmers can continue to farm, similar to like how do they get through town. So when you're building roundabouts, and I realize a lot of this is county, but there definitely, there's plans for several roundabouts in Mapleton, and looking at what's the impact of that to farmers. So back to your comment about housing, it's really being at the table and being part of the conversations. When there was a session a few weeks ago that the county had about building green spaces. So I was there to bring that agricultural voice forward. If you don't have that voice in the planning at the very beginning, then it's often not there at all or forgotten. And so having those conversations and that recognition, that intensification not only builds sustainable homes in the sense that they can be affordable and attainable for people that want to stay in the community, but it's really the only way to preserve farmland.
Any other questions? Councilor Martin?
Just a comment, actually. I do appreciate your explanation on, because I was also looking at the demographic numbers and the 50+, because it doesn't, and I know it's a Wellington County study, but, the eye test is very different in my experience, right? We have a very vibrant, that 30 to 40 demographic, at least locally, are very present on farms. And in fact, I would argue they're the ones driving like the investment and the innovation and stuff kind of, at least here in Mapleton. And we may or may not have a farm show coming up, I think, in a day or two. And I bet you we'll see an awful lot of young folks out at that too, right? So it might be, to your point of, the primary owner of the property, that makes a lot of sense. I was wondering how we got there. So that makes sense.
Anything further? Thank you. I encourage you to stay behind because we do have the letter that Barclay has sent, and we'd like to discuss that as well.
Okay, thank you for your time. And as always, if you have anything that comes across your desks that are related to agriculture, always feel free to reach out to the WFA because we always like to be part of the solution.
Thank you. I do have a resolution here moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information a delegation of the Wellington Federation of Agriculture regarding the Wellington County Agri-Food System Study entitled Farms, Food, Our Future by Wilton Consulting Group dated June 2023. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we'll move on to item 8.1. This is the Township Mapleton Emergency Management Program Committee. Resolution here moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information the draft minutes of the Emergency Management Program Committee meeting held on March 6, 2024. Any comments or questions on that, Councillor?
Thank you. Through your mayor, I'm not sure who to direct this to. In the minutes, it did discuss the Alma Community Center as not being a center for emergencies. In the past, it was thought of as one to people in that community. Is there a reason why it's not on that list anymore?
Through your worship, we asked the Emergency Management Committee from at the county level exactly that question. And if you want to have a center, a warming center where we can house people, there's the Red Cross sets out some parameters in which you can use a hall. And we asked specifically why Element wasn't included. And the reason what they gave us, and it makes sense, is there's not a separate quarter where you can set beds aside, where people can sleep and other people can kind of shoot the breeze a little bit. And also, there's no shower facilities in the facility, which is another reason why it cannot, because they use the Red Cross parameters, we just don't meet those parameters, and that's why it's not included.
Anything further? All in favor? It's carried. Moving on to item 9.11. This is the March 2024 Building Department.
Thank you, Mayor. To the mayor and council, can we put my report up on, or my stats up there? So our permit numbers are up, but again, the values, they're not very big paying permits, so they haven't came up. We do have some really big ones coming. You want to talk about farm buildings? We have a 52,000 square foot dairy barn addition coming shortly here. So that's a big one. And then, so that's going to bring up some of them revenue values, and then plus the industrial as well. There's a bunch of those that are in the works with planning as well right now that are also going to help alleviate some of those low figures. But for permit volume numbers, like I think we're a good 20 up on the average over the last few years, and we just today hit 78. So they are rolling in. Want to give an update on the renovation. So the drywall has been completed in, obviously, the foyer, back in Public Works, and in the basement. Painting is projected to start next Thursday. So there should be a nice facelift upstairs here as well for when people come to the township office. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, see, great report. Did it all. You even talked about the basement. Or, sorry, your office is down in the lower level. Moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that the Township Maple Council receive for information Building Department Report BD 2024-06 dated April 9th, 2024 regarding March month end and year to date. All in favor? It's carried. Moving on to the CEO Clerk's Department, we have the Ontario Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund. Mr. Barron, you talking about that?
I can. As always, when there's, through your worship, as always, when there's a funding opportunity, we try to take advantage. And in working with Jamie and SEMA Plus, the application is almost complete, and we hope that we will be successful in achieving $9.8 million in funding, and that, and Jamie can likely speak better to this than I can, but to upgrade to 1,300 cubic meters per day, along with twinning the force main at the same time that we're doing the pumping station. So keep your fingers crossed.
Jamie, more to add?
Yeah, to you, Mayor Davison, I will be bringing my quarterly report in May, so I'll give a fairly detailed update on all the projects and where they are with that. So we are working diligently on the Drayton, the new pumping station off the end of Queen Street, and the upgrades at the lagoons with the MBBR system. The amendment to the ECA has went in and was accepted. And we're just waiting for confirmation on that. And then the twinning of the force main's been added to the projects too. So yeah, it's very close to it's over $10 million. So yeah, we're looking forward to the projects. But you'll see that report in May.
Thank you. And just for council's information, Mr. Barron did talk about the force mains. Force mains were in the stage 2 part of the initially, and we're moving them into stage 1. That's why the number went from 7 million to 10 million to bring that in. SEMA Plus had said that we need to have that in place for stage 1, so that's why we're moving that into stage 1. Any questions or comments? All right, I'll call a question. All in favor? Actually, I didn't even read it, did I, Mr. Clerk? Maybe I should read this first. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin. What you have in front of you, all in favor? There we go. Perfect. Moving on to the fire department. This is 9.3.1. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Brought a simple report for the first one, so it's nice and easy. But to start off the partnership, we have to pass the appointment bylaw to appoint the fire officials as per the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. So This report is just appointing myself as fire chief, the 2 deputy chiefs, and our chief fire prevention officer so that we may act on that capacity in Mapleton.
Thank you, Chief. The resolution here is moved by Councillor Tamblin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information Fire Report FD 2024-01, dated April 9th, 2024, regarding the appointment of fire personnel for Mapleton Fire Rescue, and further that the Mayor and Council appoint Chief Harrow as Fire Chief, Kelly's Luz and Marco Guidotti as Deputy Chiefs, and Cameron Forbes as Fire Inspector for Mapleton Fire Rescue. And just for council, the fire chief is one of those statutory positions that council must approve. Mike, question?
A comment that Carly's going to kill me over. It was funny, 2 days ago, I said I got an email from the fire chief, and Fire Chief Harrow, and she's like, why is he emailing you? I'm like, well, he's our new fire chief now. Don't you read the paper? And she's like, I'm sleeping with a local counselor. I shouldn't have to go to the newspaper to get my information. So hopefully this resolution going out there will inform the rest of the people who may not read the newspaper, so.
So like you, I do have to give updates at home before it hits the paper. Any other comments, questions? Chief, anything further? Nothing? All right. All in favor? There you go, Chief, you're now appointed. Where's, I don't see no confetti flying, I don't know what happened. We did have it all set up, it must have been like our audio system just didn't work, sorry. Moving on to the next item, planning, consent. This is going to take some reading, so bear with me. 9.4.1, moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed, that the Council of Township Mapleton support consent application B14/24 as presented for lands described as Part Lot 2, Concession 3, with a municipal address of 6540 Side Road 16, with the following conditions: that the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to the outstanding taxes, that payment be made of the fee of $370 for a letter of clearance, that a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township, that driveway access to the retained severed lands can be provided or upgraded to the satisfaction of the Township of Mapleton, that zoning compliance to restrict residential uses on the retained lands is addressed to the satisfaction of the Township of Mapleton, that MDS compliance can be met to the barn on the retained lands, that the applicant provides a municipal drain reapportionment or mutual agreement as determined by the drainage superintendent as per the applicable township fees and charges bylaw, and further that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the secretary treasurer of the planning and land division committee at the county of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Questions from council? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Moving on to the next one. Item 9.4.2. Moved by Councillor Reed, seconded by Councillor Martin, that Council of Township Mapleton support consent application B17/24 as presented for lands described as Part Lots 15, Concession 6, with a municipal address of 6852 Side Road 15, with the following conditions: that the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of subject lands, including but not limited to outstanding taxes. Payment be made of a fee of $370 for a letter of clearance, that the copy of deposit reference plan be submitted to the township. That driveway access be to the retained lands can be provided or upgraded to the satisfaction of Township Mapleton. That zoning compliance to restrict residential uses on the retained lands is addressed to the satisfaction of the Township of Mapleton, and further that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with secretary treasurer of the planning and land division committee at the county of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to 9.5.1. This is a resolution moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed, that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information Public Works Report PW 2024-06 dated April 9th, 2024, regarding the tender recommendation for RFT 2024-04 Branch A and D drain improvements, and that the low bid submitted by Hannah and Hamilton Construction Limited in the amount of $282,736.10 plus HST for the total amount of $319,491.79 be awarded the contract for construction of this project, and further that Township of Mapleton Council direct staff to notify the assessed owners that the tender has been awarded and the proposed starting date by the contractor. Jamie, anything to add to that?
Thank you, Mayor Davison and council. The tender results come in about 10% underneath the engineered estimated costs, which we always like. Landowners always like those results also. And the construction window from September to December was desirable for the existing crops to get off, the wheat to get off. So I think everybody would be pretty happy about the results from the tender.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Next up, we have 9.6, which is source water protection. We have Kyle here. Kyle, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I'm pleased to be here today to provide the 2023 annual report for the source water protection implementation within the Township of Center Wellington. As required by the Clean Water Act, Section 87, there is a requirement for each municipality to provide a report to the province through the conservation authorities by February 1st. Staff completed that work, and this report summarizes those reports. So our work divides up into a few different buckets or sections, one of which is supporting the planning and building departments in terms of development review. So there's 34 applications that were reviewed in the township within the wellhead protection areas. This, of course, is only within the wellhead protection areas, mostly for the township systems themselves, but also in cases where some of the wellhead protection areas, and the case of Center Wellington, extends up into the southern part of the township. So 34 applications is right along the 5-year average for the township, and there's 483 countywide that were completed last year. In terms of inspections and work to confirm existing activities in our wellhead protection areas, I'm happy to report we're about 98% complete. We're down to 4 properties where we're negotiating risk management plans for chemicals, pesticides, and/or fuel. Supporting this last year, there was 37 inspections completed. Most of these were for compliance. No contraventions were found, and some of those, the rest of the remaining ones, were for verifying activities on the ground. And then education outreach, county-wide numbers were 40 events across the county, one of the largest being the Waterloo Wellington Children's Groundwater Festival, which for the first time last year was held within the County of Wellington. Pleased to say that it's going to be held in the County of Wellington again, this time at Martin Park. There was training for staff that was done here at the township as well as in other municipalities, as well as a number of other events. We did not make the Drayton show last year. It is on our list, though. And then also supporting of technical and policy work. So we're supporting some of Jamie's work in terms of the backup well at Moorfield and the Drayton well house upgrades, as well as there's a number of policy updates that'll be coming, started last year, but really will be coming through in the next 2 years that we're working on as well.
Thank you, Kyle. Resolution I have here is moved by Councilor Reid, second by Councilor Martin. The Township of Mapleton Council receive for information source water protection report SWP 2024-01 dated April 9th, 2024 regarding Township of Mapleton 2023 source protection annual report. Questions for Kyle? Seeing none, all in favor? Kyle, if you don't mind sticking around, because there's something that might come up for you in a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of bylaws. Resolution 10.3, we have moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Reid, that bylaws number 2024-016 to 2024-018 be hereby read first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 9th day of April 2024. Questions on any of these 3 bylaws? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Next up, we have item 11.1. This is the FCM resolution. You have the resolution in front of you. It's quite lengthy. If you want, I'll read it all, but hopefully you don't want me to read it all for you. You've probably read it. This is in regards to FCM work and to advance discussions on a new municipal growth framework as Canada's communities experience record growth. We're all acutely aware that municipalities are responsible for maintaining and delivering most of the infrastructure and services that our residents rely upon. However, the 19th century tax system that we use was not designed for the 21st century, and FCM is calling on all orders of government to work together to develop a new, more equitable way to fund local governments. There's also a concern, which is in the resolution, with the CCBF, that's the old gas tax, the Canada Community Building Fund. This is predictable funding, which we've all relied upon for many, many years, and the federal government is going to mess with it a little bit, which we should be concerned about. It is up for renewal. It is a 10-year program, so it is up for renewal, and we've seen AMO weigh in on this. AMO weighed in and they talked about it doesn't affect municipalities under 30,000 population, but remember, we're a two-tiered system, so it does affect the county portion, and they get over $3 million of this fund. So it does affect, will affect all of our taxpayers if the county gets affected by this. So the motion is there in front of you. It's moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Reid. Any questions on that? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next up, we do have correspondence. This is why we had some people stick around, because there might be some questions on this. In fact, there will be some questions on this. I guarantee it, because it's coming from me. Anyway, the 6 items up there for correspondence and council information. 12.1 is Wellington Federation of Agriculture with Barclay Knapp. You've had that letter there. The other item is 12.5, which is the Bayfield-Maitland Valley Source Protection Committee, when they're talking about phasing out the free private well testing in Ontario, which is quite a concern for any farming community, that they want to test their wells. And if you phase out that free system, that's troublesome. So there are 2 items that I'd like to have this discussion on. Is there anything else? So Janet or Barclay, can you speak to the importance of minimum separation requirements?
Thank you, Mayor. May I introduce myself first? I am Barclay Knapp. I am the new president of the Wellington Federation of Agriculture. No, I did not dethrone Janet. I have stepped forward, and Janet has become our past president. She's still very active of that. I do get asked if there was election, and I beat her, and no. So, but yes, MDS is very important, and it was discussed amongst us in our meeting about maybe we should reach out to all the councils and the staff and just put a friendly reminder about its importance out there. Agricultural land, as you had mentioned earlier, Mr. Mayor, is disappearing at a rate of 319 acres a day, and that was according to the last census. What the next census is going to say, we don't know. We don't know how big that number is going to get. We're assuming it is going to get much bigger. And as I was mentioning to Mr. Wheeler earlier, if you look at a place like Niagara Region, and if you want to drop down or just put in anywhere plan a livestock facility, you really can't if you're looking at all the MDS requirements. Those are put in to keep people safe, to keep our water safe, to keep basically conflicts from happening as it's been happen in the past. And, you know, it was a tough sell for some of the farm community, but it has been for the best, and we don't want to see in the farm community or any neighboring community any conflicts in the future. So this was just our way of just reaching out to each of the councils and their staff and just trying to put a reminder or a notice that MDS, we would, like it to be thought of highly and to be not thought of lowly. if I can say that.
Great, thank you very much. That's very important, and I know this council has always asked those questions about the MDS, and when we're looking at any kind of building, and it's very important to make sure that whoever moves into that location, because, yeah, it might be, as we're talking about succession, it might be the current owners buying that, or taking that piece of property and covering up, but further down the line, when they are gone, then that property gets sold, then what? Now we have MDS situations that we have to worry about, so certainly agree that we should always keep that in mind. Any questions on this at all from council? Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It was, well, kind of a comment and a question, really. I'm really grateful for the reports as well, and all the advocacy that you do, and bringing this information forward. For someone who's not a farmer, and kind of part of the decision-making process, there's so many aspects of development and land use that, you know, you come across your table for the first time. Does the WFA have like resources or offer any training for councillors or staff, just such a range of issues of surplus farm buildings and marginal lands and sustainability and all those different things? Like, because you said you commented that you couldn't be in all these places at the same time when you're having to advocate for all these decisions that are being made throughout the county. Yeah, so that was a kind of, first of all, say thank you for the information and the detail in this report. Great for policy and planning and definitely sustainability. But as you know, where else can we get more information if we need it individually or training? Thank you.
I'm going to be blunt and admit that when I started on the board, I didn't pay much attention to land use. I was more interested in a lot of the other issues that were involving in agriculture, and I've had a lot of land use beaten into me, including after all the changes that have happened, especially Bill 23. Education, that's a good question. We've put a number of resolutions towards OFA to help us out with that and ask for more resources, because they have a lot more resources and outreach than we do. We did have with our two partnering federations, Dufferin and Waterloo, and some councillors back, when was it, the spring? Back the spring last year, we had a little introductory section with, I'm sorry, Professor Wayne Caldwell, formerly University of Guelph, who comes from a farm background, who was their rural planner head for that department. He did have a bit of a session for us back at the Elora racetrack. That's something we're talking about continuing on again, because you can't cover it all in just one session. And I know we couldn't get all the members of council that we could out there. So that's something we are continuing, and that's a great question to ask. And but we've also asked the OFA to ask any of the schools, post-secondary schools that offer agricultural business as well, to include planning and introduction to that, to those graduates that are hopefully going to go on to farm. And we've also asked the Ontario Federation of Agriculture to seek out with the Land Use Planners Association, I can't remember the exact name right now, for additional courses, for additional credits for rural planning as well. So we are trying to tackle it at multiple different angles. Unfortunately, when you divide up your energy, it's difficult to focus it on, but you're absolutely right, and that's something we will work on. I just can't give you a timeline, because our focus is pointed at all different directions to try to protect agriculture.
Thank you. And he didn't want to speak earlier. He's doing a great job. Any other questions then? Councilor Martin?
Sure, thank you. I'll have one last go at them about surplus farm dwellings and see if I get the same response as Janet. So this is a very useful and informative letter, and it's well written, it's well done. So I appreciate the reminder to councils and staff. How do you reach your own base? Like, how do you actually reach WFA members when it comes to, talking about, short-term gain versus long-term pain, like some of the practices of surplus farm dwellings, for example. And some of those decisions, you know, sometimes it's a house like we saw tonight, the house and some property severed off, but some farm buildings still, you know, and then 10 years down the road, lands change ownership and it's still a viable farming operation potentially, but now you got MDS nightmares out the wazoo. So how do you, and Janet said it was obviously a very good discussion locally at your board, but how do you reach the farming community or the ag sector when it comes to these types of conversations?
Thank you, Councillor Martin. That's actually a bit of a hard question because a lot of farmers, let me put this way, a comment from my father. If you have 12 farmers in a room, you will get 13 different opinions. You have some farmers, they'll align themselves as, you know, identify as a pig farmer, identify as a sheep farmer, identify as a dairy producer, you know, identify myself as, you know, a jack of all trades. Some will, you know, identify themselves as, you know, I just do the work, you know, I just like being here.
I identify as eating all those things you were talking about, Josh.
Thank you for that too. So it's hard to reach out someone through different means because there's so many different means, there's so much different items that grab your attention. For my farm business, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. I refuse to do TikTok because I can't dance. And, you know, Janet was just asking me, have I read the latest Advertiser? And I'm usually a week and a half behind in reading it because I'm usually the third or fourth person in my household to get to read it. There's so many different avenues out there to try to get the message out. And that's why we try to use the Advertiser. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter as well. You can't reach everyone, but we do try. And that's a very good question. I don't have a direct answer for that. I'm sorry.
All right, anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Don't leave yet, because I might want to ask you a question after Kyle talks. Kyle, we want to talk about the source water protection and the well water testing, please.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So this is a letter that you've received from the Sauble Bayfield Maitland Valley Source Protection Committee. You are going to soon receive one from the Lake Erie Source Protection Committee as well, which encompasses the Grand River. So this is in regards to an Auditor General value for money audit that was completed, I believe, sometime last year, in which the Auditor General talks about the cost saving. They talk about lab reorganization, but they also muse on the cost-saving benefits of phasing out private well testing. This is, at a staff level, this is a concern. So it's more of it's a health unit mandate. So the private well testing is a health unit mandate. But as you know, all our municipalities support the health unit in delivering this by having bottles at the municipalities, sometimes fridges at the municipalities. We definitely provide them in our events. And talking to our health unit colleagues. It's already difficult to get people to test their private well, and it's free. And they should be testing it 2 to 3 times a year at least. So as soon as you add a cost to that, it's going to get a lot more difficult. The other thing is the private well testing that's currently free and currently supported by the province is the bacterial testing. So it's the E. coli and the total coliforms. There is actually some of the Region Waterloo, for instance, close one to us, that's actually offered extended sampling. So nitrates, things of that level, things of that nature. Those are available at a private lab for a cost to anyone. But yeah, no, from a staff perspective, this is a troubling development or troubling suggestion, and we certainly support what the Source Protection Committee is saying in this letter.
Thank you, Kyle. Questions, Kyle, on this? Great, thank you. Do we have anything to add to that, Janet or Barclay? Because, you know, the farmers, they have wells.
Yeah, actually, the timing of this is interesting. I was part of a meeting this morning around the modernization of the environmental farm plan across Canada, and looking at the number of farmers that have environmental farm plans in the dairy industry across Canada. It's mandatory. 100% of us have to do an environmental farm plan. A big part of the environmental farm plan is monitoring our water and the quality of our water. And part of that is once a year, I take 3 samples of, and I should do it more often, but once a year, I take samples of our 3 wells to our local public health and get them tested. And one of the wells was identified to having an issue that we wouldn't have known about. So it's definitely a human health risk perspective for people that live in the rural area, but it is a requirement for a lot of producers and a lot of the quality assurance programs that are coming out and that are becoming more common in a lot of the industries. So it would then be another cost for farmers and agricultural businesses.
Thank you very much. Very, very important information for council to know, as well as the community to know. Any questions from council then on this one? Thank you all for sticking around and helping us here. Anything further for council? 12.2, 12.3, 12.4, 12.6, anybody else? Okay, we'll move on then. Any notice of motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, given the recent passing of John Ford, I would call him one of Mapleton's favorite citizens, I'd like to make a motion that we create a John Ford Citizen of the Year award. We don't have a Citizen of the Year award in Mapleton. We have a Senior of the Year, but we don't have a Citizen of the Year, and I think it would be, it doesn't have to be anything financial even, just an honor that could be given to anyone. It could be a child, an adult, any age, and it would sort of encompass the spirit of generosity that John showed.
Excellent idea, and I'll second that motion for you. Just a number of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, someone asked me if we have a Citizen of the Year, and I said, not yet, but that's something we should do. And this, thank you for bringing this up, and I can't think of another person to name it after better than John Ford, so.
And I did speak to his family, and they are in favor of this and would like to be involved in the choosing of the recipient.
Thank you for bringing that motion up. Any comments or questions on this? I think it's a fantastic idea. Thank you for bringing it forward, Councilor Ottens. So we have a motion on the floor that Township create, in honor of John Ford, a Citizen of the Year award for the Township of Mapleton. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. I don't know this is a motion usually go for the next time, but I thought this is very important that we actually just do it today. Moving on to notice of provision, it's there in front of you. Other business, item number 15, we do have the farm show the next couple days, which is also going to be very busy for our community, expecting around 2,000 people to come in to the farm show, so that's excellent for the next couple days. Anything further to bring up? Nothing? All right. Moving on to item 16.1. This is moved by Councilor Reid, second by Councilor Martin, that Township Mapleton Council now move into a closed session to consider the following subject matters: review and adoption of the closed minutes, February 27th, 2024, personal matters about